Welcome to the Blue Collar Millionaire Show. I am your host, Chad Hufford, and this is the podcast where we celebrate the unsung heroes of the working world. Each week, we dive into the incredible stories of honest, hardworking folks who have found financial success through grit, determination, and good old-fashioned elbow grease. So if you're ready to be inspired and learn how to turn your hard work into your own success story, you're in the right place. This is the Blue Collar Millionaire Show. All right. Well, I'm Chad Hufford, and we are back with another episode of the Blue Collar Millionaire Show. And as we've promised, we will continue to bring you real-life stories of men and women who have done the hard work. They've stuck to and committed to doing the difficult things that a lot of people won't do to get to the place where most people won't be. As Dave Ramsey says, you live like nobody else today so you can live like nobody else in the future. And I want to bring our guest, Sam, into the conversation. Sam and his wife have embodied these principles for a long time. And you and I met years ago. You were working on campus as a police officer. And I think we were introduced by one of your colleagues, Sean, that got us together. You obviously, get into law enforcement for all the fame and fortune. But it wasn't just you. You have multiple family members in law enforcement, corrections. I mean, it's kind of a family business now, right?
Kind of. It looks like there's going to be more coming along. My father was in corrections for his whole career, and I was the first one to get away from that. I applied for corrections when I was in college, and then I realized if I take this job, I'm not going to finish college. So I passed on that, and then came around when college was finished. I came back to the boyhood dream of becoming a police officer. So I tried that out, and luckily ended up working for some great people and doing my whole career there.
So how old were you when you first started your career?
I was 27.
27. And that was a boyhood dream. That was something that a lot of us grew up to be I just wanted to walk out with a gun all the time. That's, I think, what I wanted. But that was something that it was in your heart at a very young age. And then you're in your mid-20s, it finally comes to fruition.
Yeah, it went to and from. I knew I wanted to be a police officer when I was in high school. And then I went, okay, they got to be 21. So let's do something that looks good on an application. So I went into the military. And that was a great time. I don't know why I really got out. I was doing well, but wanted to get out. And I was stationed in California, but I just heard shooting after shooting after shooting, and cops dying. I went, okay, maybe I'll just go to college instead of becoming a cop right afterwards. And then was able to finish college, and it came back around to want to be a police officer real hard again at the end of college.
Sam, do you know what drew you into that? Or can you remember what some of that pull was?
Just when I was a kid, I always wanted to, I don't know if it's naive still or not, but I actually wanted to help people do something that seemed to make sense and with my career. So it just sounded fun.
Well, we work with a lot of law enforcement, and I just want to make the point. There's, again, a lot of people not going to law enforcement for the money, but there are, especially corrections. You mentioned you have multiple brothers in corrections. Like here in the state of Alaska, they're so underserved right now that, one of the guys one of your brothers works with, I think had like 3,000 hours of overtime last year. I think the guy's taken off, I think he said 2 days in the last 3 years. We won't mention any names, but you probably know what I'm talking about. But so you can work ridiculous overtime and make really, really, really good money. But where you worked, that wasn't really the opportunity. So you didn't have a crazy high salary. You're paid okay. You had decent benefits. But it was really the commitment to slowly chipping away at good financial principles, staying out of debt, and consistently saving every paycheck a little bit here, a little bit there towards retirement. Is that right?
Yeah, and the main thing was, the drive to never be in the situation I was in college, because it was most poor I ever felt. I was in the military first, then went to college. In the military, I felt like I was a single guy. They gave me a place to stay, all the food I wanted, the clothes I needed, all the money they gave me was just for playing with. And it felt like I was the richest guy in the world, could do anything I wanted to. but when I got out, it all went away when spending everything you could to get to college and working. I didn't take any loans till like the last 3 semesters. But knowing and feeling how hard it was to not take student loans till that absolute necessity, that I didn't want to feel that way again. So I went, okay, what can I do? I was searching when in one of my last staff meetings with my first chief of police, he said, if you ever do anything for your future self, max out your TDA. And I don't know what a TDA is, but let's start asking questions. So between him and a sergeant I had at the time who was into investing, Sean, and he was a field training officer of mine, and taught me some stuff. So it showed me a grid of when, if you just invest this much earlier in your career, and if you even stop, and then you start after that point later on, somebody that starts after that point and gives a lot more money over more time, you'll never catch up to that first earliest investment if you can stick with it. And that's, I tried to follow those guidelines, and luckily it worked out great.
Well, and so there's a consistency aspect to it. Obviously, I mean, you got a fairly young start, which was really powerful, but consistently investing and just making that a habit. And for those listening, a TDA, tax deferred annuity, they're called a 403B. It's kind of like a 401k for educational institutions. They also have them in hospitals, those types of things. But it's a really basic retirement. There's nothing special. You didn't have any special tools. How much special training did you have in investing before you started? None. Yeah.
Somebody told me about a couple of websites to start reading those. I think maybe I found those on my own, just looking for answers. So question after question after question, and trying to do it on my own, made some mistakes, and probably sold low a couple times, moving things around. But then came across the Dave Ramsey philosophy of just over time and not changing stuff out and ride it out. Don't worry about what's happening short term. And once we latched onto that, and my wife, luckily latched onto that soon after I did. And then it was much easier when we went, okay, we got to get rid of all this debt. We had built a house, way too much house. We had other loans out. Her student loans were still out there. I think it had a snowmobile loan. So I remember being extremely angry and having put myself in this situation. I didn't have anybody else to blame. I said, okay, I put myself here. We got to do this. And I started on that route of knocking down the smallest debt first and then going to the next one. And my wife was not on board with it.
Really?
She was not. It took a good couple of years of encouraging and stuff. And when she discovered a lot of this was, goes back to good Christian-based basic values, she went, oh, it clicked for her, having that connection. And then she was all on it. And we ended up paying everything off, including the house, in 7 years and 8 months from the time we took possession of the house.
See, I did not realize that you were kind of on board first and kind of drug Tammy along for a couple of years. But so that 7 years and 8 months. So Dave Ramsey, they've done studies on this, and the people who commit to the debt snowball, because that's where a lot of it starts, is not paying off your house. It's usually paying off snow machines and credit cards and loans. Exactly. But from that date, it's on average, it's like 7 to 10 years, which
so that's right in that range.
Is right in that range. And I think a lot of folks don't realize how much progress they can make because it can seem overwhelming. It seemed like such a big boulder to move, but that's what's beautiful about those baby steps. And we try to help people with. It's just chipping away a little bit here, a little bit there. Because if you look at moving the whole debt out of your life, it just seems like where do you even start?
Well,
yeah. So one thing, though, that you mentioned that I think was really critical to your guys' success, and I didn't know you guys when you started this journey, but knowing some of the story after the fact, but being on the same page, like when you guys finally realized, like, together we can commit to this, that had to be a really powerful moment where you both could work. Yes.
And then when she became extremely happy, her mood changed. It wasn't me just going, hey, we need to deal with this. Hey, we need to deal with this. Hey, we need to deal with this. She's not super comfortable talking about financial stuff. And I was really trying to make it sound like I'm not accusing anybody of anything because I was really the spender anyway. It's just that if I addressed it with her, cause sometimes we get a little defensive about it. I said, it's not you, it's just us together. It's not working with me by myself. And yeah, you definitely got to have both people on board to make any real headway with this thing.
Well, and what was interesting about what you just said too, is when you guys finally came to terms with this is what we can do together and commit to, a couple of things. So number one, I think a lot of times in marriage, we can see our spouse as the adversary. You know, we're having financial fights or fights about anything, it doesn't matter. But let's stick with finances, where the spouses are butting heads, and really it's the finances are the issue, but we're making the issue about the other person. But when you can get aligned and work together towards something, you weren't just overnight immediately out of debt. Like, the problem was still there, but there was, what you're saying is there was freedom and clarity. You had a plan and you realized you're in this together. Like, we can commit to doing this together.
Finally a team to do it instead of, like I said, I was the one that put us there, not her. So I wasn't blaming her at all. It's just, but the plan, it hadn't clicked for her for a little while longer. And when it did, yeah, it was just, it was much easier. And we were able to both tell the kids, hey, no, we're driving by McDonald's, but we're hungry now. Nope, we're 20 minutes from home. We're going to eat there. Peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. Let go. And then we're at the house and not having blown $30 for the family there. And that $30 could go onto the snow machine or the student loans. It did snowball real quick. So when she saw that happen, you know, I got 4 or 5 loans, one drops off. It's just so much easier to see the lower numbers, especially when it got down to just the house. We just said, yeah, just keep going just like we are. And it took a lot longer for the house, obviously, and any raises we got, we threw at that. Anything extra that came in, we threw at that instead of on anything else. We did backslide quite significantly, quite a bit, and it was definitely a learning process, but we regrouped, get back on it, keep attacking it, and one of us, mostly me, would backslide. And then we'd encourage each other to get back on it, and it's just getting back up and getting on the original plan and trying to keep your mind on it until it's finished. And luckily, it ended up working out just fine for us. And knowing those podcasts like this and hearing things like this, other people have done exactly the same thing in worse circumstances. I was going, well, we can do it too. We just got to do what they're doing. They're telling us this is not. There's no secret to this pattern. It's just follow that pattern. And yeah, it was really difficult at times, but yeah, it worked.
And so it's not complex stuff, but also not easy. It was simple but difficult commitments that you made. And I know Greg's got a question, so I want to hear from him in just a second. And then it didn't always go smoothly. You said there were setbacks. You didn't do it perfectly, but when you got off course, you worked to get back on. And I think that's another great takeaway. Greg, you had a...
Yeah. So you might have to repeat my question if you'll hear me, but how many kids do you have and were raising while you were doing this debt snowball?
We have 2.
So the question was, how many kids do you have while you were working the debt snowball? And
yeah, it's 2.
And they both survived. So even though you drove past McDonald's, both boys are alive and well today.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because that's when we did a lot of stuff that cost zero money. And I think we're grew better as a family because of it. We were biking together instead of, spending the money at the movie theater, sitting in the dark separately. And just we did like kayaking and hiking. We got into these different parks challenges they do up in Fairbanks, North Starborough, where you just go out there and find the sign and then come back. And then we spent hours with the boys doing that all summer long, just walking with them out in the woods with the dog. And it was great stuff that now that there's both 16, they're not too much into. We still get to do a little bit of it, but not nearly as much as we did before. So those opportunities to maybe not spend created other opportunities to actually grow as a family.
Well, and you also set an example for your boys, because you can tell them till you're blue in the face, like, this is how you do stuff and this is what you should do, what you shouldn't do. But so often what parents tell their kids, it might be good advice, but it's things they're not themselves following. And what you and Tammy did is you modeled this behavior, and you also made it a family project. Like, your boys made sacrifices too. And whether you realize, not whether they realize or not at the time, like, they're going to look back at this and they're going to realize how valuable it was to see mom and dad struggle through this, because you didn't just teach them and tell them, you showed them what it looked like. And that's going to be a legacy that is going to serve, I believe, generations to come.
I think so, because we're already seeing it, especially in one boy. He's all about it right now. So the other one's still coming around to the idea, but he's younger in personality. So I think it's coming around for him too, because they're 2 years away from college, and we're going, yeah, of course we set up an educational fund for them, but they don't know that. So we're going, yeah, you're doing what you can to pay for this college yourself. And then, so it's clicking for them now, going, oh gosh, yeah, we showed them the numbers of what needs to be done, whether they stay here or go out of state. And they're already starting to make decisions about, oh, this is the school I need to go to, or this is the one I want to, and starting to formulate plans of how I'm going to pay for themselves. So,
well, which is empowering. You're showing them agency, and there's I think a powerful lesson there as well. So appreciate everything you shared, and there's so many good points, so many good takeaways. Again, no special training. There wasn't this perfect blueprint. There was some, you didn't use these words, but some bumbling and fumbling around to kind of figure it out. It wasn't always a clean start, but you made a decision a long time ago that you weren't going to live like everybody else anymore. And you've been that example to your kids. You didn't have any special certifications or training or requirements. You made a decent living, but not a ton. Like, there's nothing that you guys had that most people don't have available to them. Is that correct? Like,
yeah, I think so. And like you said, when starting out, it was literally, I think, $50 a month, because I still had loans for, the student loans that I had. I found those out because I wasn't married for years after I started work. Found out the student loans right away on my own. And then, lost my train of thought.
Well, we're just talking about the lack of any. It wasn't like you guys had a big inheritance. There wasn't any big aha. It was just the little things you guys committed to for years and years that anybody could. You didn't have any, great fortune or all this extra expendable income. I mean, some of these were years of just scrimping and saving what little bit you could. You said $50 a month was what you started with. I think, starting, there's a lot of excuses for people that don't want to start on this journey. I don't make enough money. I don't have enough education. I don't know the right people. I don't know. Like, you and Tammy could have made all those, but you didn't. And you started where you were with what you had and made a commitment to dig out of some of the holes you had dug and also slowly start building. And as we wrap this up, I just want to commend you. I've seen it in a lot of other people. I've seen it in you guys, but I've also seen the joy and freedom that you've experienced on this end of it. Even though I didn't know you at the beginning making the sacrifices, I've seen all those things pay off. And Sam, I just want to tell you, it's been a pleasure getting to experience that journey with you. And I think what you shared is very insightful and encouraging, because this is it's everyday normal people doing things that most people aren't willing to do. And that's what set you guys up for success.
Thank you, Chad.
Thank you.
All right. There is one more thing for you. Often might have to edit this back in a different place, but what was significant for me is when we started out, and I remembered my point at the $50 a month. And then when I saw other people go and heard the same thing, and we talked about it, and they maybe started TDA about the same time as me. And then they went, okay, well, I'm getting a raise. I can afford this new truck. No, okay, I'm not doing that. I'm just going to up my TDA. And for every raise for a long time, it just went to the TDA till it maxed out my contribution, and then I couldn't anymore. And then I left it at the max. And whenever the max went up every year or two, just bumped it up to the max the whole time. And so that thing about any extra money coming in and you have earmarked for a new car or a trip or something, don't do that. Put it on, maxing out your early as possibly as you can, get as much money invested early on so that you don't have to do it. So it'll be, work hard now so you don't have to later, kind of thing. Throw the money at it as soon as you can, and it'll help a lot more.
So any raise or any bump in pay you got, rather than letting that money go find a place to hide in your budget, you sent it to these investments.
Yep. I knew that I was already living on what I was making, so I could continue to do that. So this was extra money. And what's the smartest thing? Would probably be help my future self. Like my first chief of police told us, do something for your future self. And that's what it was.
Yeah. So we ask people all the time, are you serving or stealing from the future version of you? And that's what you committed to, is to serve the future version of you. But it took a long time to go from $50 a month to maxing it out. And what I think is almost like, so Greg's a long distance runner, but it's like somebody training for a marathon. If you want to do a marathon, you don't start out by running 26 miles. It takes a long time to build up that endurance. And it took some time to build that financial endurance, be stuck with it, and the results show themselves. So once again, thank you so much for sharing your story and your encouragement to those like you that could have made all those excuses, but stop making them, took control of your financial life, and what a blessing it's been.
Yes, it has been. Thanks, Chad.
Thanks, Sam. All right. That was awesome.
Thanks for listening to the Blue Collar Millionaire Show. We hope this episode has been inspiring and beneficial to you. If you want help on your journey to financial freedom, reach out to us at veritasalaska.com. We'd love to sit down over a cup of coffee with you, either here in our office or virtually, and get to know you and your needs. And though this podcast is free of charge, we do ask that you please do us two quick favors. If you enjoyed the episode, give our pod a great rating on iTunes or whatever podcast platform you use, and also give us a follow on Instagram. We hope you have a wonderful day filled with gratitude and intentionality. God bless.
The information expressed is for general information only and is not intended to provide specific investment advice or recommendations for any individual. It is suggested that you consult your financial professional, attorney, or tax advisor with regard to your individual situation. Hypothetical investment results are for illustrative purposes only and should not be deemed a representation of future results.